Hey guys, welcome back. So, we're going to work on the front end of the car today. We put the front subframe in, put the motor in. They're just sitting there. The subframe's bolted in, motor's just chilling. We put our negative jig things, and we're just working out what we're going to do for the front. So this is the old one we cut off. I just set a headlight there for reference. And you can kind of see some of the challenges we're going to run into, because whatever mounting system, if we custom fab some metal up here, we have to go around these headlights. So as you can see from our negative jig, a lot of our critical points kind of go around that headlight. You can see here, these 2 points, I believe, are for the fender. 1 or 2 of these are for the headlight. Looks like the inner one here is for the headlight. That's probably the front fender. Yeah, so fender, headlight. These are fender. That's a headlight support. And then, looks like this is also the headlight. This one, I believe, is the bumper. So front bumper. So basically that little bit of metal right here is, it might be worth reusing that piece just because it already exists. It's already thin sheet metal. So it's the right shape, and it's got, you know, if I were to cut that out, that wouldn't be that heavy, and that would probably make our life a lot easier. So we're probably going to do it. We're thinking this through right now. Part of the reasoning is when we were looking at how to build a front piece, I wanted it to be removable, and it may still become removable. Like, nothing says we can't reuse this piece but make it unbolt from the car. So we still got options if we choose to do that. But the thing to keep in mind, it's kind of tough to figure out how to do this without building something that's heavier than this. And like, not heavier than all of it, but like for example, these huge sections of frame that are in the middle, like definitely not putting that back. We don't need it. But like this work around here to capture all that, you know, if whatever I use is probably going to be like round tubing, flat bar, you know, I can't do this 3-dimensional sheet metal work the way Mazda did. And just from looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that's going to be hard to improve upon. Maybe not all of it, but some of that. So now I'm thinking like, okay, we might that's why I kept this too. One was to use it for mock-up and to reference. And the other one was, hey, you never know, we might want to use some of this. So looks like that might be the case. You can probably guess the center section's running right here. That's all heavy steel. Let's see, if we come around, it'll probably be more obvious. Yeah, you can see what I mean. Pretty beefy steel, a lot of it, don't need that. So we're still gonna have to look at this and come up with a plan, but I'm thinking we're gonna try to do that. We're gonna try to reuse some of that metal to make our life easier, and probably be lighter too. So we'll have to pick and choose what we do. But getting rid of that box frame in the middle will be pretty helpful, because that's going to open up some space. So anyway, don't have a concrete plan yet, but this is what we're working on. I'll bring you guys back when we make a little more progress. Alright, so we don't really have any answers yet, but I'm going to explain my thinking. We're trying to come up with a plan for the front end. So you can see we just clamped the metal to the bench, and then we hung the bumper. And some observations. So this bumper has 4 supports, you know, running across here, but this metal is pretty rigid. I think you could get away with just running 2 of these. So I'm going to call these 2 optional. Another thing I realized, this is kind of a big one. I could build the structure, there's like a few things. So I could build a structure that's hidden under the bumper skin. Let me show you what I mean. You can see that obviously there's 4 bolts that go on the metal there. But if I remove this, obviously the, you know, bumper bolts to the metal. So if I just set the bumper down for a second, you can totally imagine building a structure that had, say, a tab here that went that direction, a tab here that went here, down, and back. Same thing over here, tabs that are going, you know, down and back. And once you get under the skin, it's hidden. There's a lot of room here. Like, see how far my hand goes under here? There's a few inches. So once you got here, you could run a tube and just kind of approximately, it wouldn't have to be like dead perfect dimensioning and positioning, because it's under the bumper skin. And then here, there's this clips onto the fender. Let me show you that. That's this. It's on this side. That little latch, that's what the bumper clicks into. It just clicks, and then there's a bolt. No big deal. So we'd have to stay basically below this. We switch sides, but basically if we did that, we could come here and then just kind of follow this maybe go right above that and just do like this. And this gets into the wheel well at that point. Not to think about that. We probably don't want to, well, you probably can't go too far that way because there's a tire there. But anyway, kind of taking a look at this, just trying to work out what we can do and what we can't do. If we try to reuse some of the structure, which is still on the table, we haven't ruled it out, but you could take, I'd be tempted to keep this piece, maybe. This piece, definitely, at least to here. Tempted to just keep it like that because these two tabs go here. So basically you could, I don't think this middle section, I don't want that for sure. But if you were gonna keep this, you could basically take this and just kind of cut like this. Like, see this line? Like, just imagine that line just kind of does like this and turns. So you basically keep this section. So maybe this is probably no matter what we do, well, maybe not anything, but using this is probably good because that's so thin and light. And being all 3D formed, it's fairly rigid. I'll never make something lighter than that that has the same rigidity. So that's a part we might recycle. And you can see these two tabs. You know, this is headlight and fender. These are both fender, headlight. So this little section, if we wanted to reuse something, that's a good spot to reuse. Plus the headlight fits there. So a lot to think about. We're still kind of working this out. But it's not as easy as I thought it was going to. Well, I didn't really think it'd be easy, but it's still harder than I thought. So we're going to keep looking and see what we can come up with. Okay, so we've been looking at this for hours, trying to come up with a plan. Got a little bit of an idea in the works. So we threw this fender on here and had a look and thought about that. We went back to looking at the front end again. Here's what we're thinking as a maybe. So where you can see the X's, we're gonna cut the line, and the X part is throwaway. So basically we're keeping this little C channel that would go right here. This would extend forward, this top piece stays. That gets cut, and then you can see there's a little narrow section right here where we're gonna cut on both sides up until this point. So basically we get to keep this little headlight wraparound section. And then this line gets extended forward, and we follow this and cut it right there. And then lastly, this little piece here that dips down, we slice that off. If you cut all of that, this little section will be removable. So, but it'll be separate from that side. They'll no longer be connected. So I think if you did that, I would probably guess that all of the metal that would be left, this little piece, that probably weighs like 3 pounds, maybe 4 pounds. So if you do that on both sides, you're talking about 6 to 8 pounds. So remember, originally this was a 36 pound part we cut off the car. So I'm thinking if we keep those two, we're probably looking at 6 to 8 pounds, maybe less. And then one thought is to just weld this back onto the car. The downside, if we weld that, it won't be removable. However, this measurement between here and here leaves about an 18-inch opening, which is still enough for the motor to come straight forward without having to lift the engine up to just, you know, just come straight out. But it's a little tight, so I'm not in love with that idea. But the problem is, the bumper is not that hard to remove, but right next to the bumper is the headlight. And to, you know, you can see the mark where the headlight stops. So to really gain a lot of access, you'd have to pull the headlights too. And then here's the other, you know, so there's that. And this is where like the frame rail stops. So this section would have to be removable too, and it would require removing the headlamps. If you wanted to totally get rid of like this little piece hanging in here, you would basically have to pull your bumper, which is kind of a given, the radiators, all that stuff, and then you would have to like unbolt this section, which includes removing the headlamps. So it's doable, but it's probably, it might not be worth it. We're gonna see. We're still trying to, believe me, we don't really have a real plan yet. We're just kind of guessing and trying to come up with something. This is like pushing, the way my mind works, it seems like I only have like so much RAM. Like when I'm thinking about a problem, if you get too many variables, it's like it won't solve. So I can't solve every problem simultaneously. I wish I could, but I just can't. So like looking at, like I couldn't figure out how to build the front end of the car. The reason it hasn't been built, like doing the negative jigs, I could understand that. I knocked those out in a few hours. But like the entire front of the car, like what that's gonna look like, I don't know. So Instead, I just started looking at this and saying, well, what do I like and what do I not like? And obviously, we like this thin, lightweight stuff that picks up a lot of points. We don't like all the heavy crap we don't need. So, you know, that got me thinking like, hey, how could we cut and recycle a piece of this? And that's what we kind of drew. Like I said, I bet you that's going to weigh probably 10 or 20% of what this whole assembly weighs, which means, actually, if that's true, it'll probably weigh like 4 pounds or 5 pounds for all of it. So if that's true, that's super light. And we're still thinking, because we only get one shot. Like right now, this is an assembly. Once we start cutting, that's it. There's no going back. That was one of the reasons when I cut this off. Funny enough, when I went to remove the front, I wasn't anticipating that I would use any of this. But I knew it's possible that I might need it for a jig, or hell, I might change my mind and need all of it or part of it. So what I did was, when I removed this, is I did one clean cut on both, you know, all the way through, so that it came off as one piece. And I tried my best. Like right here, there's a tiny bit of like metal bent. But I mean, very little damage was done to this when I removed it. And that could easily be fixed. So I didn't want to mess this up, because I knew, hey, you might need some of this one day. So looks like that may have happened. So there's that thought. That would do the, you know, the fenders, the bumper, and the bumpers, right? So, but what about a frame? Well, we're not really sure yet, but let me show you one possibility. I purchased some 3-inch square tubing a while back that I intended to use for that. So it's like 065 16 gauge, 065 steel. What I like about this is that if you ever got in a wreck, you could actually design this to where it would buckle and absorb some energy. And, you know, I think it could be better than just using like a big old piece of chromoly. What I'm afraid of is if I do like a big piece of chromoly, is if you get in a wreck, I don't know, it just doesn't look like, I don't think it would work as well as you would hope. I don't think it's going to absorb a lot of energy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not going to crumple very good. It's going to want to transfer all the load and just break a weld, probably. So if you did it this way, if you weld this to a plate or whatever, you know, I could machine this. A couple thoughts. One, that's why I got it in the middle. I just threw it in there. But my thought was I could machine this to like save some weight. But I could also, when you're doing that, think about how it would crumple if you got in a wreck, so that it could potentially absorb a little energy. And we got some more of these things too, so I ended up buying like 4 of those. So we could even mess up 1 or 2 machining and still be okay. So anyway, all that's kind of going through our head, trying to come up with a solution for how we're going to build this front end. And we've just been spending basically a few hours looking at ideas and tossing stuff around, trying to see what's going to, you know, there's a lot of ways to do it. So figuring out what's best. This is what kind of works for me. So if I come up with something, I'll let y'all know. Hey guys, welcome back. Well, you might can guess what we decided to do. So this is in progress, but as you can see, we took that front clip and chopped out the spot we marked. So we let me show you what it looks like and some numbers. So we haven't welded it in, but funny enough, our negative jigs are perfect to hold these in place so that we can weld them in. So that's kind of nice. They do sag slightly under weight, but that's easy enough to fix before we do it. And check this out. So I weighed the one over here, 2.78 pounds. Now I might add some metal to strengthen it or whatever. Probably will. It's actually stronger than I thought. I was afraid it wouldn't be. But call that 3 pounds. And say that one's 3 pounds, so 6 pounds. So we went from 36 to 6. That's insane. So we just knocked, you know, we're still 30 pounds lighter. So that's cool. So it won't be as good when we're done, because we're going to probably add some more metal. But looking good so far. Anyway, we're going to, as you can see, we kind of trimmed this one up some to kind of do the lines, whereas over here we haven't really finished. So we're going to unbolt this one and get it all cleaned up as well, and go from there. But yeah, I think this is going to be the plan, is to get these welded back on the car and kind of go from there. I'll try to, let's see how this looks. I haven't done this yet. I probably can't film this. Thought about putting that there. That puts this kind of close. Yeah, that's actually kind of close right there. Sorry, it's really hard to film this. So We may decide to put some box tube there, and if we do, it wouldn't be too hard to put a piece of metal that goes here down and hits the box to support that. So that'll probably happen. Those boxes are, as they are, I don't know what that weighs, probably 6 or 7 pounds. I'm not sure, but we are likely going to machine it some to save weight and make it crumple better if we get in a wreck. So stuff to work on, but I'm kind of liking this. So bring you guys back when we make a little more progress.